Wouldn't it be nice to find a properly capable compact SUV? A car that could walk the walk as well as talking the talk. A car like this one, the improved version of Subaru's 4th generation Forester. Everything about this design seems to be nicely balanced, from the shape and positioning of its unique boxer engines to the shape and positioning of its intended clientele. People who want something fashionable but don't need to make a fashion statement. People who want something tough and rugged but don't need to tackle the Rubicon Trail. So the smarter styling inside and out will go down, as well as the Symmetrical All-Wheel-Drive system and the X-Mode off-road technology. It's all been very carefully thought through. Some cars command almost unquestioning customer loyalty, and this is one of them, Subaru's Forester. It's a car with a blend of qualities that loyal buyers will tell you they can't really find replicated in quite the same way anywhere else. So, just as there are performance sports cars but only one Porsche 911, and there are luxury 4x4s but only one Range Rover, so this car commands a small but unique position as an all-wheel drive stepping stone between 4x4 estate and fully fledged compact SUV ownership. But hold on, isn't that simply a definition for what the modern day market defines as a crossover? Cars like Nissan's Qashqai, Peugeot's 3008 and Ford's Kuga. Well, no, not really. All of these models bring with them the faint feel of style over substance. Nothing wrong with that, of course, if it's what you want. Subaru even satisfies these people with their neatly packaged XV model. But it isn't really foresting territory. You buy this car for what it does, not for what it says about you. Talk to almost any Forester owner and they'll tell you of times when they cruised past other similar vehicles that came unstuck when the going got tough. They'll tell you that nothing ever fell off, that nothing ever went wrong, and that nothing would persuade them to buy anything else. Which would be great for Subaru's UK importers if there were a lot of these kinds of people, but there aren't. Since the original launch of this model way back in 1997, it's remained a small niche choice amongst rural buyers who often still think of it as the kind of car it was in its first 2 generations of life, a kind of rough road estate. That appeal was subtly tweaked in 2008 in 3rd generation form to create something more Honda CR-V or Toyota RAV4-like, an approach further refined by this Mark IV model, a car launched here in the summer of 2012. It's been further improved since then too, first in 2015 when emissions were enhanced and diesel buyers got a Lineartronic auto gearbox option, then again more significantly in the spring of 2016 to create the facelifted model that we're looking at here. Beyond the smarter styling, Subaru has also introduced a range of more significant changes, including uprated suspension, sharper steering and greater refinement. There's also fresh headlamp technology and a classier cabin with cutting-edge infotainment. Plenty then to keep this car competitive, as an interesting alternative if you're looking for a more capable option to either a Qashqai-style crossover, a lifestyle small SUV or a 4x4 estate. Let's check it out. You know right from the off with this Forester that you're getting the real thing. A tough, capable set of wheels that'll keep you mobile in conditions that would see most style-conscious SUVs starting to struggle. Of course, you may not want that. If for you, a car of this kind should be about fashionable looks, slush-moulded cabin surfaces and cutting-edge electronics, would suggest that you probably won't like this one. To be fair, Subaru has done plenty to try and make this 4th generation Forester easier to live with and nicer to drive. Thicker window glass and extra soundproofing material has certainly made this facelifted 4th generation model quieter. Plus there's a quicker steering ratio to make response at the helm a little more rapid. And uprated suspension settings have slightly improved the ride over broken or choppy surfaces. Otherwise though, things are much as before, this car continuing to work to its own distinctive and rather unique dynamic agenda. If you're not familiar with that, then you'll need to know that Subaru has founded its reputation on the low centre of gravity offered by horizontally opposed or boxer-style power plants, a design approach that sees the cylinders in these engines lying flat on their sides, the pistons travelling towards each other like the fists of two pugilists. It's a unique selling point that you'll notice every time you start up and immediately appreciate the gruffly soundtrack common to everything the company makes, even the Forester model's torquey flat 4-cam 16-valve diesel. Flat 4, by the way, means exactly that. The unique layout of the engine means that it's flatter and can be mounted lower down, improving handling agility and four-wheel drive road holding thanks to an ultra-low centre of gravity that just wouldn't be achievable with a conventional power plant. This, more than anything, marks out Subaru's unrivaled commitment to all-wheel drive, with all the units on offer specifically designed to combine with the company's renowned Symmetrical All-Wheel-Drive system. And this is key to the Forester experience. Most so-called four-wheel drive rivals don't actually travel in four-wheel drive very much of the time, but instead use cheaper on-demand setups that add extra rear-wheel traction only when it's necessary to do so. Here instead is a setup that constantly shunts power to each wheel and, as a result, imparts a much greater feeling of grip and security on surfaces like muddy tracks and light sand. Under the bonnet, all the engines on offer are of 2 litres in capacity, and all are very different. Most buyers will want the 147 PS diesel we're trying here, a willing unit with 350 Nm of torque, capable of rest to 62 miles an hour in 9.9 seconds, on the way to around 118 miles an hour. To be frank, it's a better choice than the alternative 150 PS petrol unit that, though returning an apparently quite similar set of performance figures, must in reality shift a fully laden Forester with about 40% less pulling power. Still, if your car's likely to enjoy a slightly easier life, the base petrol variant may just be all you need. Though bear in mind, if you choose a manual petrol variant, that the Forester's usual 2,000 kilogram towing capability will fall to 1,800 kilograms. At the top of the range is a minority interest variant that aims to broaden the customer base a bit, the pokey 240 PS XT petrol turbo, capable of rest to 62 miles an hour in 7.5 seconds, on the way to 137 miles an hour, and a derivative that long-time Subaru buyers might expect to be trying to reprise the niche appeal of early turbo Forester models with their huge bonnet scoops, big wheels and all-or-nothing performance. But despite its use of a turbocharged version of the engine found in Subaru's BRZ sports car, this is a very different thing, subtler in look and feel and available only with the Lineartronic CVT transmission that's optional on the mainstream petrol and diesel variants. It's the Lineartronic box that you have to get all the technology developed for this car. So important is the auto option for Subaru that their engineers have developed an active torque split all-wheel drive system to better suit it, which distributes power 60-40 front to rear instead of the 50-50 setup employed in manual models. There's also an X-mode system designed to work with the Lineartronic that incorporates hill descent control and adjusts the stability control and throttle responsiveness to give maximum control in slippery conditions. It's very effective. You'll be surprised, in fact, by just how far you can go across poorly surfaced terrain. For a start, the 220mm ground clearance on offer is far better than most of the competition can offer, complemented by useful approach and departure angles of 25 and 26 degrees. Having said all of this, I don't want you to get me wrong, this is no rock crawler. For a start, there's no low-range gearbox for that sort of thing. But for simply dealing with field tracks, towing or getting somewhere icy or muddy, this Subaru will suit many owners perfectly. But of course, the terrain you're most likely to be using in your Forester will usually be tarmac covered. Just as well then that in a Lineartronic auto petrol model at least, you'll be able to set your car up for that too, thanks to SI Drive, the Subaru Intelligent Drive system, accessed via a provided steering wheel switch. This offers the basic choice of the efficient Intelligent I setting you'll use most of the time, and the S mode that improves throttle response and allows you to play with the gear shift paddles across 6 simulated gears. The top XT petrol turbo model adds a third S- mode with 8 simulated gears and sharper engine and throttle response. So, what kind of car is this? A different one, certainly, from the Forester we first saw back in 1997. That first generation version, like the Mark II model that followed it, was a rugged 4x4 estate. But Subaru already had one of those, the Outback. So in 2008, in the change from second to third generation, the Forester was repositioned as the kind of RAV4 or Honda CR-V style compact SUV that far more people were buying. You get the impression, though, that this car's core customer base hasn't quite yet caught on to the fact. So at its launch in 2012, this fourth generation model took a further step towards that kind of look, an evolution that continues with the aesthetic changes made to this facelifted version. The alterations are pretty subtle, you have to say. You'd really have to be a brand loyalist, a previous owner or a Subaru salesperson to spot them. We're told that this hexagonal central grille has been updated, but a more obvious change lies with these lower corner bumper segments embellished with L-shaped chrome trim. A more significant improvement, though, lies with the addition of these wraparound headlamps. They still retain Subaru's signature Hawkeye shape, but now they're able to turn with the bends and dip themselves at night. In profile, existing owners might note that smarter designs have been introduced for the standard alloy wheels, the 17-inch rims fitted to most models now being of a 3-dimensional 6-spoke design. Otherwise, things are much as before, the high bonnet leading into a muscular shoulder line that runs the length of the vehicle. Plus, there's a roofline that curves subtly downwards towards the rear. There are thoughtful design touches too. Take the way that the lower side sills are covered by the door panels to stop dirt from building up and getting clothing muddy when getting in or out. At the rear, the main change is the addition of these brighter LED combination lamps. Plus, you get this high-mounted rear spoiler and a shark fin roof antennae. More significant, as usual, though, is the stuff you can't see. The Forester's built to a much tougher specification than, say, a Qashqai class crossover model would be. That means it gets a ring-shaped reinforcement frame that includes special strengthening for the passenger cabin's roof, doors, pillars and floor. That's one reason why this car is rated as one of the very safest in its segment. But then you'll probably have approached this car always expecting it to be safe, solidly practical and, well, not particularly inspiring to sit in. After all, a seat at the wheel of any previous generation Forester saw you surrounded by acres of dull utilitarian plastic. This Mark IV model had to do better, and to be fair, significant efforts have been made with higher grade materials used on the dashboard, the centre console, the doors, and in general around the whole cabin, with particular attention given to the controls and areas most regularly touched by the driver, like the steering wheel, the handbrake, the gear shift, and so on. There's nothing here to give Audi designers any sleepless nights, but it's a big step forward for a Forester. And in any case, you'd forgive this car much for its superb all-round cabin visibility and airy, open feel, emphasised by this large, standard-fit, extended-length glass sunroof. A key change for this facelifted Mark IV model is the addition of a factory-fit Starlink touchscreen infotainment system. The 7-inch display allows front seat occupants to control the Forester's various infotainment functions using the same functionality as a smartphone, swiping and pinching actions, enabling you to, for example, zoom in on the map displays of the optional navigation setup. Drivers can use voice control to activate the stereo, set a sat-nav destination, or even adjust the climate control system, while Apple iPhone users can also link the Starlink setup to full Siri eyes-free functionality. Plus, through the system, you can access a full range of useful apps that will enable occupants to find weather or traffic reports, access wireless audio, receive the latest news updates, and check their calendar while on the move. It's all nice to have and compensates to some extent for the more utilitarian feel you get in this interior in comparison to smart-suited rivals. Otherwise, though, things are much as before, so you view a clear set of instruments through this leather-stitched multifunction steering wheel, but some of the other ergonomics remain a little haphazard, such as the way that the temperature controls are at the bottom of the centre stack, but the digital readout they deliver displays right up at the top on this 4.3-inch multi-information panel that sits above these centre vents. Now, this screen brings key information into your line of sight, offering separate scrollable menu options that show the time, your fuel economy, your running cost history, trip computer functions, and the status of the car's standard symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Cabin practicality has been well thought through, down to the tiniest details. The heater controls, for example, are large and chunky enough to be used by a gloved hand, and the centre console has been shaped so that a front seat passenger wearing large boots can rest them flush with the floor mat. There's a decent amount of interior storage space too. True, the door bins are rather small, but there's a reasonably sized glove box, a deep compartment in front of the gear lever with a 12-volt socket, and two cup holders next to the stick shift. Further back is a deep storage box with a removable tray, twin USB ports and an aux-in socket. Plus there's also an overhead compartment for your sunglasses. Time to take a seat in the rear. If you're considering this car as a replacement for your pre-2012 third-generation Forester, you'll find that there's much more space back here, thanks to this Mark IV model's extra 25mm of wheelbase length. Now, this has freed up 23mm more legroom. Plus, in this generation version, Forester passengers get 20mm more cabin width. A reasonably flat transmission tunnel makes the transport of three adults possible if absolutely necessary, while if there are only two of you, you'll find integrated cup holders in this central armrest. Out back, there's a 505-litre luggage bay. That's 125 litres more than you get in Subaru's XV crossover model, but 54 litres less than you'd have in the brand's Outback estate. Beneath the loading bay are a number of underfloor compartments, as well as an area designed to hold the retractable cargo cover. If you need more, then a tug on the side panel pull latches reveals a 1,592 litre space that's 940mm long and up to 1,166mm wide, big enough to take a mountain bike without having to remove the front wheel. Forester pricing sits mainly in the £25,000 to £30,000 bracket, though you can pay up to around £31,000 for one. It's an all 2-litre lineup, and at the foot of it, the brand continues to offer a 150 PS normally aspirated petrol engine, while a 241 PS turbo petrol unit continues on in the XT Performance flagship model. Almost all Forester buyers, though, choose a diesel, a single 147 PS power plant that uses the same Boxer technology as the green pump-fuelled units. Prices for such 2-litre D variants start from around £27,000. The mainstream petrol and diesel models get the £1,500 option of Subaru's CVT Lineartronic automatic transmission, a gearbox that you have to have on the Turbo XT. Unlike its competitors, Subaru doesn't offer the chance for buyers to specify two-wheel drive, so all models get the symmetrical all-wheel drive system that's better engineered than almost anything that you'll find on the soft-roading competition. When it comes to competition for this Forester, it's quite conceivable that there will be buyers considering this car as an alternative to a Qashqai-style lifestyle crossover or a capable four-wheel drive estate. I'm not going to do that here. Subaru already provides products in each of these other market niches. The slightly smaller XV crossover, equivalent versions of which cost around £3,000 less, and the slightly larger Outback four-wheel drive estate, equivalent versions of which cost around £1,000 more. Instead, the brand is targeting this Forester as competition for more capable compact SUVs, cars like Volkswagen's Tiguan and Honda's CR-V. So, how does this car stack up against rivals like these? If you start by considering the diesel Forester likely to account for the majority of UK sales, you'll find that it's priced pretty similarly to its Tiguan and CR-V rivals, but you'd save around £1,500 on a comparable Jeep Cherokee. If you're wondering about Toyota's RAV4 as a competitor, well, that's no longer available in diesel form with four-wheel drive. What you could consider, though, for around £1,500 to £2,000 less are SUVs like the four-wheel drive variant of Nissan's X-Trail and the diesel version of Mitsubishi's Outlander. It's harder to find alternatives to a petrol-powered Forester. Honda's CR-V 2-litre I VTEC is probably the most obvious one, but that car costs around £600 more to buy and is less efficient to run. Toyota's RAV4 might also be an option, but in petrol 4x4 guise, it only comes with automatic transmission and would cost nearly £1,800 more than a petrol auto Forester. You can't get an affordable, similarly powered Volkswagen Tiguan in 4x4 petrol form. The 2-litre petrol version of that is a lot more expensive. Nor is this kind of package offered at all to buyers in most other parts of this segment. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is a Forester that you really want, then whichever of the all-wheel drive 2-litre boxer engine models you choose, base petrol, diesel or petrol XT turbo, you should find your car to be decently equipped. All models get alloy wheels of at least 17 inches in size, HID headlamps with auto levelling and power washers, daytime running lights, auto-activating headlamps and wipers, front fog lamps, roof rails, heated power folding electric mirrors, a rear spoiler and UV protection glass. Inside, there are niceties fitted across the range that you'd normally expect to have to pay extra for. Things like a power sliding large glass sunroof, front seat heaters, cruise control, a rear parking camera and an 8-way power adjustable driver's seat. There are some unusual standard individual touches too. The windscreen wiper de-icer elements that you'll more quickly use to get you running on frosty mornings, for example. All of this is in addition to the kind of luxury features you'd expect for this kind of money. Things like dual-zone automatic air conditioning, a Facelift Category 1 alarm and leather trim for the steering wheel and gear knob. Subaru is also very proud of its Starlink infotainment system that comes with a 7-inch central display and a 6-speaker premium audio system. As part of this package, you also get voice recognition, a DAB digital radio tuner, steering wheel mounted controls, Bluetooth phone compatibility and dual USB ports along with an aux-in jack. Opt, as most Forester buyers will, for the Lineartronic Auto gearbox, and you get the brand's X-Mode system for greater off-road prowess. That setup featuring hill descent control to ease you down slippery slopes. If you're specifying the auto box on a petrol-powered Forester, you also get the brand's SI Drive system that allows you to choose between two modes, one of them aimed at sportier driving and one prioritising more efficient progress. Find the extra £2,500 that Subaru requires for premium trim, and of course you get a lot more. The seats gain leather upholstery, and for the driver there's a 2-mode memory function for the electric mechanism. Plus, at this level there's satellite navigation, a powered tailgate and a keyless entry system with an engine start button. Go for the top XT petrol turbo variant and you get all the premium spec features, plus larger 18-inch alloy wheels, privacy glass, aluminium pedals and a more sophisticated 3-mode SI drive system to go with the standard Lineartronic auto gearbox. If you want to go further, then options include the usual tow bars, roof racks, roof boxes and bike carriers. Other practicalities include cargo nets and cargo trays in the boot area, plus to protect the rear loading sill from scratches, there are various step panels, protection foils and a fold-out flap. You can also specify a dog guard if you need it. Aesthetic touches include 2 sportier 18-inch alloy wheel designs for standard models, plus black or silver door mirror foils, a black mesh grille, wheel arch flares and extra chrome for the door mouldings, the tailgate or the fog lamp surrounds. What else? Well, you might want to look at front and rear parking sensors. Oh, and rear side window sunshades that'll look after the kids in the rear. On that subject, we like the rear seat entertainment iPad holders that clip onto the back of the head restraints so that the children can be amused on longer trips. There's even an in-car refrigerator. Finally, if you're taking to the wilds, you can specify underguards to protect both the engine and the rear differential. And you might also want to look at adding front and rear skid plates. Oh, and maybe also the bumper corner protectors. On to safety. The Forester has always been one of the very safest cars in its class. This generation model having been awarded an impressive 91% score by Euro NCAP for both adult and child protection. Hence its full 5-star Euro NCAP rating. The key safety-orientated change for this revised design lies with the addition of these steering responsive headlights that turn with the bends and automatically dip themselves at night. Otherwise, things are much as before, which means that the standard VDC vehicle dynamic control setup is always there to work in conjunction with the Forester's Symmetrical All-Wheel-Drive system to maintain optimum stability, whatever the surface. That's about it for electronic safety cleverness. This Forester showing its age by doing without the various cutting-edge camera and radar-based electronic safety kits you'll find on obvious rivals. Owners do, though, get a trailer stability control system, which will interest those of them wanting to exercise the usefully broad 2,000-kilogram brake towing limit. As you'd expect, there are twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a driver's knee bag. Plus, there's an energy-absorbing brake pedal, a collapsible steering column, front seats with energy-absorbing backs, anti-whiplash front head restraints, Isofix child seat fastenings, and a pedestrian-friendly design for the front bonnet and bumper. It's fair to say that Subaru weren't exactly quick out of the blocks when it came to driving down the cost of vehicle ownership. The first diesel engine only arrived in 2008. Since then, though, the company has rapidly been making up for lost time. Its distinctive boxer diesel design has been continually tweaked and teased to lower emissions and improved fuel economy, while a more efficient generation of petrol engines is doing much to banish Subaru's old reputation of being rather fond of a drink. All well and good, but if you ask other brands why they don't offer permanent four-wheel drive as standard in this segment, they'll tell you that the weight and complexity of such a setup is too expensive in terms of fuel consumption and CO2. Subaru disagree. The company accepts that it's never going to be able to offer an efficiency class leader to buyers in this sector all the time it standardises this setup, but it does believe that it can offer this peace of mind package with minimal impact on running costs. Is that just talk or reality? Well, you be the judge. This 2-litre diesel Forester model manages 49.6 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 148 grams per kilometre of CO2 with a manual gearbox, or 46.3 miles to the gallon and 158 grams per kilometre if you go for the Lineartronic automatic. These kinds of figures aren't quite as far from the segment standard as some of the magazines are suggesting. To give you some perspective here, I'll tell you that the most efficient comparable model in this class, a Volkswagen Tiguan 2-litre TDI 150 PS 4Motion, can only do slightly better than this, returning 52.3 miles to the gallon and 141 grams per kilometre with a manual gearbox, and that using a part-time four-wheel drive system. Other rivals with part-time four-wheel drive setups, cars like 4x4 versions of the Jeep Cherokee and Nissan's X-Trail, can only manage similar returns. In other words, there's only a minor efficiency downside for the peace of mind of having this Subaru's permanent all-wheel drive system. Sounds good to us. The normally aspirated petrol-powered Forester model can afford to be a little less competitive when it comes to running costs due to its relative lack of direct competition. Subaru has, nonetheless, put quite a lot of effort in recent years into improving this engine's efficiency, with particular emphasis on the reduction of internal mechanical friction. This is the only unit in the range that gets an auto start-stop function that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Plus, there's also a clever active valve control system that varies the timing of the intake valves to provide optimum airflow in and out of the engine. Despite all this, the returns are relatively unremarkable. 40.9 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 160 grams per kilometre of CO2 for the entry-level manual model. Things do improve slightly if you choose auto transmission, though, to 43.5 miles to the gallon and 150 grams per kilometre, provided you drive activating the Lineartronic system's intelligent SI drive mode, geared towards maximising fuel economy. What else? Well, a decently sized 60-litre fuel tank gives all models a useful touring range, some 660 miles if you go diesel. And there are useful fuel consumption monitoring tools built into the multifunction display on top of the dash that help you optimise your driving efficiency over time. Residual values are on a par with mainstream models in this class, and insurance groups are competitive, providing you rate them against comparably powerful four-wheel drive rivals. You're looking at Group 23E for the normally aspirated 2-litre petrol models, and Group 25E for this diesel version. The top petrol XT Turbo is rated at Group 34A. You'll also want to factor in the peace of mind of a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty that embarrasses the 3-year, 60,000-mile package most rivals offer. And you get a 3-year recovery and roadside assistance program you'll almost certainly never need. Subaru, you sense, has come full circle. Originally established here as an SUV brand, and today uncompromisingly proud of it. The company's earliest models were sold alongside farm machinery, and beneath the plush polish you get in this modern Forester, a bit of that same rugged appeal still remains, creating in this car a much tougher, more solid-feeling product than you'll find in compact 4x4 competitors. It's certainly a refreshing alternative to the lifestyle legacy of soft-roadingness that has clogged up our cities and school runs with models about as suited to the Serengeti as a celebrity in the jungle. Yet crucially, it's now one you could at last consider as a realistic alternative to more compromised competitors. A Forester is fashionable without being trendy, and built to last while never feeling utilitarian. The changes made to this improved 4th generation version really help here. The smarter cabin and improved driving dynamics, creating a more palatable road-going experience. In short, there are now fewer reasons not to like it, which is good because it's difficult not to warm to this Subaru's refreshingly honest ethos. It's a vehicle in which four-wheel drive is fundamental rather than simply an optional extra, and as a result, one of the best cars in the class to buy if you really plan on using it to its full potential. True, the result still may not be as smoothly cultured as less capable rivals, but when conditions worsen, you won't care about that, and you'll probably be very glad that you chose one of these.